Good evening, everyone. My name is Vicky Jelly and I'm the Mayor of WCC. I'll be chairing tonight's council meeting. I'd like to formally welcome everyone watching the council meeting tonight, whether you're in the room here with us or watching live streamed. Live stream allows for public viewing and transparency, and if any technical problems interrupt the live stream during the meeting will be adjourned until issues are rectified. Scheduled council meeting will be conducted in accordance with council's governance rules, and any interruption to the meeting or not in with the behaviour with the governance rules. I'd like all councillors to stand for the opening prayer and the acknowledgement to the traditional owners. We will now proceed to the acknowledge the traditional owners on the lands on which we stand. My respects to their elders past, present. Thank you. Number 2 on the agenda item, apologies. Are there any apologies? Agenda item 3, confirmation of at item 3 on the agenda, we have recommendation to confirm the minutes of the scheduled meeting held on the 6th of June 2022, an additional council meeting held on the 27th of June 2022. Are there any questions before I seek a motion? Any councillors?
Just one, Mayor.
Yes, Councillor Blaine.
Just under it was item 4.2 on page 49. It says the motion was carried 4-0. If we could just get that amended to 4-1.
That was from the additional meeting.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry, the meeting of the 27th. Sorry.
Okay. Can we have that amended?
Yes, we can. We can make sure that that's amended.
Okay.
Yep, so that was all.
No, all good. Thank you. So, do I have a mover for this? Councillor Blaine. Thank you. What is your motion? Oh, no, we don't have to do that. Do I have a seconder? Sorry. Councillor Ziegler. Thank you. All those. Thank you. Carried unanimously. We'll amend that. Councillor has a conflict of interest. They must declare it now and do so again just prior to the item being discussed. A councillor who has declared a conflict of interest must leave the meeting and remain outside the room while the matter is being considered or any vote is taken. Once the matter is resolved, the councillor will return to the meeting. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest this evening? Councillor Pascalialis.
Just item 7.5, please.
Okay, thank you. Any other conflicts? No, thank you. Good. Agenda item number 5, which is the mayoral presentation. So, NAIDOC Week celebrations are held across Australia in the first week of July to celebrate and recognise the history, the culture and achievements of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island peoples. To celebrate the start of NAIDOC Week, with this year's theme being Get Up, Stand Up and Show Up, the Children's and Family Services kindergartens, in conjunction with our kindergarten Indigenous language teacher Mel Stephenson, volunteers and of course our wonderful, enthusiastic and talented kindergarten children, have put together the art and language exhibition right here in the atrium in the Lighthouse Theatre. Now, anyone that came up the main stairs of the building tonight would have walked through there. It's fabulous. On your way out, please have another look. They've done great work putting that together. It's the second year in a row. They've been working for a whole term to bring this together, and it's 3- and 4-year-olds that have done it, so it's a pretty hard task by the teachers and the helpers at the kinders. it's a great demonstration of how profound the impact of education is, especially on our young people. Through the kinder language programs, this exhibition, we are building a great foundation for our young people to learn about our Indigenous culture from the very get-go, not how we were brought up, but from the get-go. It's you know, they know how to say welcome to country and all those things. So as a city and a community, we're really fortunate and grateful to our local Aboriginal leaders who have given many years of gracious time and knowledge to build cultural awareness for our community. So I'd encourage everyone to walk through there. It's open until August the 1st. You can come in during when the Lighthouse is open and ask others to come in as well. So it's a really great exhibition, a great start to a week of celebration. The second thing that has been announced today, which is really exciting, is the announcement of the AFLW football game at the Reid Oval on Saturday, October the 9th. That was announced today, Essendon versus Geelong, and what a great coup for the city, for the Reid Oval and for the region. And great credit goes to our sport and rec staff, who have obviously been working behind the scenes on this for a while, helping pull this together with AFLW and the ground staff and everyone up there. So it's great to have a match of this calibre come here to Warrnambool so soon after we've really just opened the facility. And it's great that it can be either gender, but it's great that it's a women's game. And that facility was definitely built with gender equity in mind. So it's really good, and it'll, I'm sure, inspire any aspiring footballers, male or female, young women that are playing for our local football teams now, to attend that and encourage them to participate. And that's what we want. Was the aim of the Reid Oval, is to encourage all people to participate in sport. So it's great. October the 9th, I think, at 1:15. So, and it'll be, I think, televised on Channel 7. So how good is that? So that was a really good piece of information today. Thank you. So we're up to agenda item number 6, public question time. Are there any public questions tonight, Mr. Schneider?
There have been none received, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay. Good. Councillors, we're now moving to the officers' report section of the agenda. I'd like to remind you of the speaking times allocated for each item during the meeting as outlined in our governance rules. The mover of the motion may speak for a maximum of 5 minutes, and then a further 2 minutes later on to exercise their right of reply and close the debate if they wish. Any other councillor, including the seconder, may speak for or against a motion for no more than 3 minutes. To assist councillors with time limits, you will hear a signal when you reach the maximum time allowed. I'd ask you to respect those time limits, please. Agenda item 7, 7.1 reports. 7.1 Community Satisfaction Survey 2022 results, agenda page number 5. Directorate Department is Corporate Strategies. The purpose of this report is to present the 2022 results of the Community Satisfaction Survey. Are there any questions, councillors, before we go along with this motion? No, thank you. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Arnott, what is your motion?
The council notes the results of the 2022 Community Satisfaction Survey conducted by
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Taylor.
Yes, I will, thank you, Mayor. The Community Satisfaction Survey is perception of council's performance, and I'd have to say that council as a whole has performed really well in all areas, especially our core 7 areas. We continue to build on the strong performance last year, which was maybe a honeymoon period, but we've shown with this survey that we actually have kept the line going upwards, which is just wonderful. We've shown that we've been higher than state average and regional average in all areas. only congratulate ourselves, but congratulate all council staff, EMT teams that have helped with this really good performance. Our challenge now, I suppose, is that we have to keep performing well and keep working towards better and better results. And I do ask and remind anyone, if they want to see the full survey results, that they can go to our website and view them. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Taylor, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Mayor Charlie. Yes, there's many pleasing results amongst the survey. Amongst those, the council's customer service rating increased from 71 to 73, which is satisfactory, but still leaves room for improvement. Good to see residents aged 65 years and over increased council's highest overall rating, up 15 points on 2021. Very pleasing to see the survey show the council's overall direction score of 63 this year, well up from a very low survey score of 32 in 2020. And similarly, a significant increase in waste management from a very low rating of 42 in 2020 to 62 this year. I'm also pleased to see the rating of parking facilities increase from 51 in 2021 to 56 this year, mainly owing to the decision of this council to allow free 1 hour car parking and in the Parkers, Ozone and Cramer Dixon car parks, which has been very successful and utilised by the community. Thank you, Mayor Charlie.
Thanks, Councillor Taylor. Any other councillors wish to speak? Councillor Ziegler.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Strong results, of course, gratifying to see, and the improvement, which is about public perception, often probably more than actual performance, but it's also a reflection of the work of council employees who are often gone thankless. And it's some gratifying acknowledgement that council employees have done so much better in the survey this year than they have in past years. It's good. As Councillor Taylor's already said, that there's room for improvement, and I hope that we're all aiming towards that. The work must be laid directly at the feet of the council officers rather than councillors, who often are the subject of public perception. And it's actually surprising, the improvement, given the usually negative spin, the local headlines that we receive on any part of council news. So it really is a marvellous improvement.
Thanks, Councillor Ziegler. Anyone else? Councillor Pascaliaris?
Thank you, Mayor. I also think it's overall a pleasing response. I have taken note of a couple of things. One, in the report, where the focus areas for the next 12 months might include maintaining and further improving performance in community decisions and the related areas of community consultation and informing the community. So obviously council now has guidelines on how we engage with the community through a deliberative consultation process, and this drives a more thorough, transparent and fair process, which gives the community either multiple opportunities to participate in consultation or perhaps multiple methods of feedback. This council group has been focused on how we can inform the community on a more consistent basis. This has included the Mayor summarising council decisions with a video posted to the days following the council meeting, the short videos highlighting major projects underway around the city, major announcements about projects and from where funding has been obtained, either federal, state government or council to begin, and photos or videos of local events. There are many more examples, but the main focus has been on using our social platforms mainly to keep the community informed and interested. Having said that, there are obvious cohorts of our community that require information through more traditional means, such as posted mail, which is also highlighted in the report. In other areas, telephone has remained the primary method of contact with council, followed by in-person and then via email. This tells us that in a city of this size, people are still requiring direct, personalised service. While technology may spur us to improve in our digital offerings, we do still need to remember that traditional customer service is always in demand. So I'm comfortable to receive and note the results of this 2022 survey.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Councillor Blaine?
Thank you, Mayor. Warrnambool has bucked the statewide trend, as my fellow councillors have pointed out. According to the survey, increasing satisfaction overall satisfaction of council by 7 points. It's important that we keep working hard for Warrnambool and continuing to deliver for our amazing city. Council is responding to the needs that are identified in the report. Our library service has been identified, and with the completion of the new facility for the service later this year, I hope that we'll see this improve in the next community satisfaction survey. Traffic management is still an area of concern, and I believe this is partly due to our CBD and congestion on our feeder roads, into Warrnambool, like Mortlake Road. So it's important that we keep working and advocating for these within our city. It is a great result, but we need to continue to work hard for Warrnambool with the organisation in order to maintain and improve our city and continue working on our results. So it's a good result. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? No? Councillor Koch?
Thank you, Maya. I do agree with my colleagues as they, with the survey. If you look at the 7 core give us satisfactory in what council has put, especially the staff. So congratulations to the staff for this and they have done.
Thank you. Again, I'd like to reiterate what everyone said. I think we've all had a good read of the document and verified quite a few things in there that are just excellent. We have bucked the statewide trend. Yes, we've out of, as this council sits, out of our honeymoon period after last year, but it's unprecedented that it's gone up still. Councillor Paspaliaris is correct. Community decisions, and we must keep the community informed, and I think we have very much improved on that. Again, working towards that every week and every month when we have our meetings and getting the information out there to the community. There's some great tick boxes there. Elderly support services, great for our most vulnerable residents that often are touted that are left behind. Well, they're definitely not left behind by the take on this, by the opinion back, the perception of the community, waste management, sealed local roads, all those sort of things. I think the core measures are important, and I think we've got to celebrate this. But again, like everyone said, we've got to keep on the game, don't take our eye off the ball, and endeavour to keep this up and support our great staff here at council that are supporting us, and they are the ones behind us doing the work, and we do congratulate them. So that's my take on it. It's a fabulous result, and we need to celebrate it as a council and as a community, because it's a great positive story that everyone can take something home from. So there being no other speakers, Councillor Arnott, would you like to close?
The only thing I'd like to add, Mayor Charlie, is that we do seem to be heading in the right direction, and it is important that we maintain our focus and we bring the community with us and we listen to the community. And I think that was one of our platforms right from the word go. We did want to take on community feedback. So let's just rise to the challenge and keep moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. 7.2, Audit and Risk Committee, Biannual Report of Activities, agenda page number 10, Directorate Corporate Strategies. The purpose of this report is to present the Audit and Risk Committee biannual report. Any questions on this, councillors, before we go? Right, thank you. Do I have a motion? Councillor Blaine, what's your motion?
I move that Council notes the Audit and Risk Committee's biannual report, which details activities of the committee covering the meetings held on the 1st of January and 30th of June 2022.
Point of order. So should it read held between the 1st of January and 30th of June?
Actually, it should be between. Very, very well picked up.
Okay,
Sorry.
Can we change?
yeah,
Yeah,
Change that.
Yes, we can.
between,
yeah. Sorry, yeah. I'm happy
point
with that.
taken, yep.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I think that's the motion if everyone's happy with it. So it's between those
Yep,
notes.
you're right with that. Okay, good. Thanks, Councillor Blaine. Would a seconder?
Yep.
Councillor Pascaliaris. Councillor Blaine, would you like to speak?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. The committee's been through a period of renewal since we come on to council. We've seen nearly all the independent members change, and we've seen new fresh-faced members with new ideas, which has actually been really exciting for the Audit and Risk Committee, and it's a privilege to work with them. Some of the key areas the Audit and Risk have been working on over the past 6 months have been to approve the annual strategic internal audit plan with the high-level specifications for the 5 reviews to be completed in 2022, and there is also the capacity within the plan to have a 6th review if the Audit and Risk deems it necessary. The Audit and Risks also provide oversight on the CCTV system's annual reporting. Noted there's also been significant changes to accounting policies and the local government performance reporting framework. Reviewed and improved the annual external audit strategy provided by the agent of the Auditor General, identifying the audit approach and deliverables of the audit plan, so making sure the plans for the audits are hitting the right areas of council. Provided updates, we'll provide updates from the Victorian Auditor General's office over fraud controls in local government grants, and it was actually good of the council to be a part of that, so that we could make sure that all the grants the council was giving out were going through proper process, and it was really good to see that we were fairly compliant. We had a little bit of work to do, but it was a really good outcome, and it was great that we're actually involved in it. Received and approved the outcomes of the Audit and Risk Committee self-assessment tool, which is the next item, and acknowledge the amendments to the fraud and corruption control procedure, which were consistent with the findings of the Ombudsman. So it's, I'd say that the Audit and Risk has been successful in keeping an eye on council, and I look forward to continuing to work closely with the committee over the next 6 months for the next report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Pascaliaris.
Yeah, I just might add, obviously Councillor Blaine was very comprehensive in his comments, but as an overall sort of picture, the committee is an independent advisory committee to council. It doesn't have executive powers or authority to implement actions, but it does have authority around reviewing, auditing, planning and outcomes, meeting with council officers, meeting with internal and external auditors, and addressing any issues brought to its attention. Much of what the committee oversees is of a financial nature, such as monthly financial reports, CEO expenditure, but many regular internal audits relate to issues such as human resources and risks associated with workforce, things like work cover claims and workplace health and safety updates. The committee is accountable to and reports directly to council, so these regular updates are essential. I'm happy to accept this report.
Thank you. Any other councillors like to speak? Councillor Taylor?
Thank you, Mayor Shelley. Yes, I'd just like to endorse Councillor Blaine and Councillor Pascaliaris' comments about the Audit and Risk Committee, which plays a very important and key role as an independent advisory committee to council on the effectiveness and organisation systems, process and culture for complying with its legal and financial obligations and management of risk. Thank you, Mayor Shelley.
Thanks, Councillor Taylor. Anyone else like to speak? Thank you. Yes, good to hear some feedback there from Councillor Blaine and Councillor Paspaliaris, who are both on the committee. I thank them for their time in that and overseeing it. So good to get that report and thank them for that. Councillor Blaine, there being no other speakers, would you like to close?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Carried unanimously. So 7.3, Audit and Risk Committee Self-Assessment, agenda page number 12, Directorate Corporate Strategies. The purpose of this report is to provide Council with an annual performance evaluation of the Audit and Risk Committee. Any questions, councillors, at all? Thank you. Do I have a mover? Councillor Ziegler, what is your motion?
The Audit and Risk Committee performance evaluation be received.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Paspaliaris. Thank you. Councillor Ziegler, would you like to speak to this?
I would, Julie, thank you, yes. The Audit and Risk Self-Assessment, it's important to note that the evaluation is in fact a self-assessment by the independent members of the committee. The results give 84% satisfaction result, which is slightly down on the result from 2020, but it's still within the 80 percentile, which in itself is gratifying. Realistically, I think, of course, that we would all aim at trying to get over the 90%, but it still comes in as a fairly good result for self-assessment. One might be able to press to say that self-assessment is no recommendation. However, it's such a good result, I think we have to be fairly pleased with the performance of the Audit Risk Committee.
Thank you. Councillor Paspaliaris, would you like to?
Yes, just in the main areas that were highlighted with the survey, which included Council's identification and management of emerging business risks, the addition of frequent updates and these areas identified are noted, and council officers and committee members will formulate a plan to act and address services.
Thank you. Any other councillors wishing to speak? Councillor Blaine.
I fully endorse what Councillor Ziegler and Councillor Paspaliaris have said. Overall, I'd say the committee has been working well with council officers and auditors. And one of the big pluses has been the actual flexibility of the organisation in order to prioritise audits to make sure they're hitting our more urgent needs than now, which has been a big plus. As Councillor Paspaliaris has said, meeting frequency has been raised, with the possibility of meeting more often, and the actions taken by council over fraud controls as a whole, the Audit and Risk Committee see it as they've been proportional to what the actual risks and incidents were. And as Councillor Paspaliaris has said, sometimes the organisation responses taken to risks are slow, but it's something that is a priority for the committee, and they're working to improve this and the closing out of actions. So it's good to see, and hopefully we can improve these results at the next self-assessment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Arnott.
Just to finish on, I think the self-assessment of this very important committee is quite vital. It does ensure that they're constantly checking and improving their governance. So well done, guys. Just keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'd reiterate that as well. Anyone else wanting to speak? Thank you. There being no further speakers, Councillor Ziegler, would you like to close?
Thank you. It's worth mentioning there the context of this audit and risk self-assessment made practice of good governance through openness and accountability while balancing aspirations with sound financial means. And the independent members of this particular committee are selected on the basis of their capacity to make these judgments on risk, and it helps to ensure financial sustainability through effective use of council's resources and assets. It's an incredibly important committee because it's one of those committees that actually looks inwards at what in an open and accountable way.
Thank you. There being no further speakers, I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, so 7.4, Audit and Risk Committee Charter Update. Agenda page number 14, Directorate Department Governance. The purpose of this report is to provide Council with an opportunity to review and adopt the amended Audit and Risk Committee Charter, the Charter. Any questions before we go ahead with that? Thank you. Is there a councillor who'd like to move the motion? Councillor Blaine, what is your motion?
The council adopt the Audit and Risk Committee Charter as found in Attachment 1.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Paspaliaris. Councillor Blaine, would you like to speak? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. The review of the Audit and Risk Committee Charter, which actually sets out the terms in which this advisory body works within council, it's been reviewed at the request of the Audit and Risk Committee, mainly due to being under the new 2020 Local Government Act. It was crucial that we actually reviewed the terms to make sure they were compliant with Section 54(2) of the Local Government Act. This new charter clears up terms for committee appointments as well. It's important that we have clear terms for the committee in order for it to function to its maximum ability in order to fulfil its role under the Act and for warnings. So I'm happy to support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Paspaliaris, would you like to speak?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Just to add to Councillor Blaine, that it is the new Local Government Act 2020 that the Charter's been amended to reflect some of those changes required, and that the amended Charter has been accepted and endorsed by the Audit and Risk Committee itself. I think one of the most important parts of the document is Section 3, which outlines the role of the committee, and this is where some of the changes have been made, where the committee monitors the compliance of council policies and procedures in line with the overarching governance principles. And another important note to highlight is in Section 7, reporting. The committee may report at any time to council on any matters of significance as determined by the committee, and I think this ensures the committee has autonomy on the reporting process, which is very important.
Thank you. Any other councillors like to speak? No, thank you. Being no other councillors, Councillor Blaine, would you like to close?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Okay, we'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Okay, we're up to agenda item 7.5, planning permit. Yes, thanks, Councillor Paspaliaris. In conflict, leave. It's agenda item 7.5, planning permit PP 2021 0356 15 Cooper Street. Agenda page number 16, Directorate City Growth. This report summarises the planning assessment that recommendation for industry, laundry and warehouse and reduce the parking requirement and recommendations subject to conditions. Are there any questions before we go ahead? Okay, so do I have a mover? Councillor Taylor, what is your motion?
Thank you, Mayor Charlie. I would like to move that the motion to issue a notice of decision to grant a permit under the provisions of the Warrnambool Planning Scheme at 1.5 Cooper Street, Warrnambool, is as per officer recommendations. Thank you, Mayor Jelly.
Thank you. You can have a drink there before you go. Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Ziegler. Thank you. Now, Councillor Taylor, are you right to speak to that?
I'm right.
Yes, if you'd like to speak now. Thank you.
You have, Jelly. I see the building at 155 Cooper Street, a regional logistics distribution centre, as a vital and necessary asset for South West Healthcare in Warrnambool. The 8 objections received, primarily in regard to parking shortfall, did concern me. However, on balance, the proposal is considered to meet the requirements of the planning scheme, and I support it. However, the use and development of this land is subject to 21 conditions mentioned in the building recommendation and must not be altered prior without written consent of the responsible planning authority. Thank you, Mayor Jelly.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor, Councillor Ziegler, would you like to speak?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Joy. This is an excellent manifestation of the historic and brilliant work of the South West Healthcare and its management. Audits must go to Dave Fraser and his staff for their efforts. Conditions set out by the planning must be closely adhered to, and there are several conditions being laid out there. Amenity and convenience and access must not be complicated by this development. I believe most of the conditions laid out there in the recommendations address that concern. There are effective nods to stormwater and environmental controls. I've looked at those and I think that they're effective. Recognition of the worries of the neighbours about the congestion of parking and access. I have suspicion of the validity of the computer modelling because the tolerances do not provide fail-safe elements for the human variance. Neighbours' fears of regular disruption may in fact be realised. However, on balance, I think that the project is one that needs to be supported. And again, I would offer my plaudits to the efforts of the South West Healthcare to be compliant with not only planning requirements but also to the neighbour.
Thank you, Councillor Ziegler. Are there any other councillors who wish to speak? Councillor Arnott.
Yes, this has been a significant application, and on paper it's quite in depth. South West Healthcare are looking to have a distribution and laundry facility there that they operate out of. Initially, I have had concerns about the parking, the amount of parking available, also truck turning space into and out of the existing site. However, reading all the recommendations that have been attached to this application, I have faith that all those areas have been addressed, and so at this stage I'm happy to support the motion. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Arnott. Anyone else like to speak? Councillor Blaine. Oh, sorry.
Doesn't matter.
Yep,
Yeah.
Councillor Blaine.
Thank you, Mayor. When we're listening to the objectors, parking seemed to be the key issue for everyone around this area, and it's for the surrounding businesses in particular. It is interesting because we are actually granting a reduction in the parking that they need to, that South West Healthcare will need to provide, but on balance with the facility and the operations, plus the car parks that they're not only providing in their own facility but also off street on the roads. I think on balance, Southwest Healthcare have actually done what they can in order to alleviate the parking pressures, to try and alleviate the parking pressures for this area of the industrial estate. It's a really exciting project to actually have a regional laundry facility, and looking at the balance between the current businesses there and the new facility, I'd have to suggest that Southwest Healthcare are doing have done what they can in this application, and with the conditions that are set out, I'm happy to support it. So thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Blaine. Councillor Koch? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to add my support to this motion for the importance of the facility to the region and one of them in particular. But of course, there's some concern about parking. I would like also to attach condition of amendment into that subject to suit all. But I'm happy to support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. I would agree again with what everyone said. It's been a tricky one to look at. It's a very in-depth application. We've heard both areas, sides of it, and those 21 conditions that are in the report must be adhered to. And if there's any issues, I would hope that Southwest Healthcare, and I'm sure they will work through with that. I think it's going to be an exciting project. It is what's needed. It's placed in the industrial estate where it needs to be. It'll service not just Warrnambool but the region for many aspects of things. So as hard as it has been, they've done a lot of work to come to this decision. So, Councillor Taylor, would you like to close the debate?
Thank you, Mayor Shelley. Yes, I'd just like to add that the issuing of the permit will expire if the development and use are not started with two years of this date of the permit. Thank you, Mayor Shelley.
Okay, thank you. So we will now vote on that. I'd like to put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you, that's carried unanimously. We could just get Councillor Paspaliaris back in. Thank you. Thank you. We'll now move to agenda item 7.6, rezoning of King's College and Royal Court Planning Scheme Amendment C210 WARR, agenda page number 24, Directorate City Growth. This report recommends that Council adopt Amendment C210 WARR and submit the adopted amendment to the Minister for Planning for approval. Are there any questions before we go ahead with this? Anyone? Councillors? Thank you. Do I have a motion, councillors? Councillor Blaine, what is your motion?
I move that Council adopts the amendment C210 WARR to the Warrnambool Planning Scheme in accordance with Section 29(1) of the Planning and Environment Act 1987 and submits amendment C210 WARR to the Minister for Planning for approval in accordance with Section 31(1) of the Planning and Environment Act 1987.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Ziegler, thank you. Councillor Blaine, would you like to speak to this?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. The big thing with this planning planning scheme amendment is King's College was just a bit of an anomaly for what our planning scheme actually aims for. It's a public use zone, which is for public schools. So we're moving it. So we're moving it to a general residential zone 1, which is what most of the private schools are around the district. It was really interesting. Public use zone zoo, Two, sorry. Look, it's, there was one objector who put in concerns, and it was a real credit to the planning officers that they went and saw the objector and they actually withdrew their objection because they had their concerns answered. So it's good. This can progress to the planning minister for approval. So yeah, it's good. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ziegler, would you like to speak?
I would, Mayor Jelly, basically that, as Councillor Blaine has mentioned, that there was only one objector who ultimately withdrew the objection on the basis of a clearer explanation of the situation, and I see this amendment as a correction phenomenon which really puts the situation for King's College straight.
Okay, thank you. Do I have any other councillors wishing to speak? Thank you. Councillor Blaine, there being no other speakers, would you like to close?
No, thank you.
Thank you. We'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, so we've got 7.7 on the agenda, Warrnambool Beach Access Strategy, agenda page number 28, Directorate City Growth. This report considers submissions to the draft Warrnambool Beach Access Strategy and recommends that the plan be adopted by Council. Any questions on that, councillors? Thank you. Do I have a motion, councillors? Councillor Taylor, what is your motion?
Thank you, Mayor Jelly. I'd like to move that the motion to consider submissions and adopt the Warrnambool Beach Access Strategy as per officer's recommendation be accepted. Thank you, Mayor Jelly.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder to the motion? Councillor Arnott, thank you. Councillor Taylor, would you like to speak? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Jelly. This is an extremely important strategy to encompass as it relates to 33 beach access points from Shelley's Beach to Logan's Beach, many of which are not fit for purpose and some have limited useful remaining lifespan. Growing demand for safe beach access include the replacement of 13 staircases, improvements to 7 existing structures and the replacement of the existing ramp near the Warrnambool Surf Life Saving Club. Again, there is no mention of a toilet block together with change rooms at McGennan's car park, which is so urgently required. This beach access strategy will be accommodated within council capital works and importantly used to support future grant applications from government departments. Thank you, Mayor Jelly.
Thanks, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Arnott, would you like to speak?
Yes, I will. Thank you. I agree with Councillor Taylor that this is actually a really important document, and in 2019 an audit was carried out on our beach access. We've received community feedback and there is a few minor changes. We do need to consider our expanding tourism base, as well as what climate change is effectively doing to our coastline. We are noticing a warmer year-round climate. There'll be more storm surges and an increased wave height as sea levels rise. So I do think it is very important that we have a strategy, and any maintenance and improvements to existing structures, they will be delivered over the years. Priorities, as well as budget allocations and funding and grant opportunities. But once again, I come back to the more important that we have a strategy and we try to address these conditions moving forward. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Arnott.
Thank you, Mayor Jelly. As Councillor Taylor and Councillor Arnott have said, this is a really important document for all the works that hopefully we need to be working towards over the next 15 years. And as Councillor Arnott has pointed out, the effects of global warming very well could affect how this plan changes into the future. You know, some of the key recommendations do include the replacement of the existing accessible ramp for the Warrnambool Surf Lifesaving Club, which I think is really important for equity and access to our beaches, plus 3 new accessible ramps in Lady Bay and the Hopkins River to replace the existing structures that are there, and consolidation of 2 new structures into 1 new accessible ramp at the Flume. Replacement of 13 staircases because it's such a harsh environment down there, just to make our beaches more accessible to everyone in our community. And retention of currently 5 constructed or upgraded access structures with no changes. So we do have some good structures down there, but a lot of them do need work, and there's another 7 actually in there. So also there's a recommendation which everyone's going to be accepting of the closure of 2 existing access points and 1 new access point to the harbour, which will be really important, especially with all the works going on down there at the moment. So I'm happy to support this. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Bain. Anyone else like to speak? Councillor Ziegler?
Yes, I was actually, amongst many others, surprised to know that there were actually 33 beach access I will maintain an open mind about the success of even the newest structures that have been built there. Very elaborate, very sophisticated beach access structures with stainless steel steps and all the rest of it. Knowing how harsh the environment is along that part of the coast and the changing nature of the coastline, it'll be interesting to see how durable they are. When the original wooden steps and structures and movable chain and plank type access points were made, I don't know, they would be marvellous too. Our concept actually be there today. As I say, I'll remain open-minded and see how well the steel ones tolerate the conditions, while actually trying to remain optimistic about their future.
Thanks, Councillor Ziegler. Councillor Pascaliaris?
I would just like to add that just a couple of the suggestions arising from the consultation incorporated into the final version of the strategy. Just 2 points that I thought were worth mentioning was consider appropriateness of installing solar lighting, showers and drinking taps near new upgraded beach access points, and investigate and support purchasing of portable beach matting, liaise with Warrnambool Surf Lifesaving Club to determine options for making portable beach matting readily available during patrolled beach season, investigate means of promoting the use of beach matting and developing a user-friendly booking method required. I thought those were 2 really good considerations that have been added in.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Thank you, but there being no further speakers, Councillor Taylor, would you like to close?
Thank you, Mayor Jolly. Yes, further to Councillor Ziegler's comment about the still staircases down to the beach, I think I firmly believe the one at Wern Bay is a major success, and I can see that being in place for many decades ahead. So as soon as a lot of the other walkways down to the beach are duplicated from the Wern Bay staircase, the better. And I would also like to see a lot of importance placed on these stairways to the beach for the disabled and also for ladies with ramps, for them to have easy access to the beach as soon as possible. Thank you, Mayor Jolly.
Thanks, Councillor Taylor. I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Carried unanimously. Thank you. Agenda item 7.8, Community Small Infrastructure Fund. agenda page number 33, Directorate City Infrastructure. This report seeks council to consider the submitted projects under the Community Small Infrastructure Fund. Any questions before we go ahead, councillors? Thank you. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Arnott, what's your motion?
That council allocate the following amounts dependent on relevant planning and building permits from the Community Small Infrastructure Fund. 1, Warrnambool Artist Society Car Park, $30,000. 2, Warrnambool Community Gardens Quarry Station, $250,000, pending landowner consent. And 3, McKinsey Car Park Change Shelters, $30,000, pending landowner consent.
Thank you, Councillor Arnott. Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Blaine. Thank you. Would you like to speak, Councillor Arnott?
Yes, I will. The Community Small Infrastructure Fund is there for community projects, small community projects, and we can see that we're able to help out the Warrnambool Artist Society. I did visit there and see that their car park was really bad. It was hard to get up the hill and get into the car park. The Warrnambool Community Gardens, another really good community fund, so we're pending landowner consent there. And Councillor Taylor will be happy to see we might get some Magennan car park change shelters put there, so one for you, Max. 1% of the fund, the fund receives 1% of rate revenue annually. The Small Infrastructure Fund does have guidelines and evaluation criteria so that the adopted projects meet the objectives of the fund. We urge community groups to consider using the Small Infrastructure Fund. That is what it's there for. So thank you, Mayor Jolly.
Thanks, Councillor Arnott. Councillor Blaine.
Thank you, Mayor. It's really exciting. This is $210,000 going back into the Warrnambool community budget. It's always exciting to give money back. The Warrnambool Artist Car Park, as Councillor Arnott said, this will be a huge improve visibility access and safety for the members and visitors of the car park. The Warrnambool Community Gardens, the flowing where they're planning on putting in planning on putting in the last amphitheatre, an educational creek, which will be huge and be really exciting. It'll be a really exciting project, and hopefully they can get landowner consent so we can see that progress. And McKinnon's car park, as Councillor Hunt said, it'll be really exciting to actually have some change shelters up the top there if we can get landowner consent on that as well. It'll be 2 to 3 temporary small change shelters located near the car park, which will allow beachgoers to quickly change after being on the beach. So they'd be in addition to the works that's already going on down there with the new amenities block, and will hopefully alleviate too much pressure on the amenity block during the busy times of year like summer. So I'm really happy to support these projects. I think they're great. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Blaine. That's good. So other councillors like to speak? Councillor Ziegler.
Thank you, Mayor Jelly. Yes, to endorse the words of Councillor Arnott, Councillor Blaine as well. The Community Small Infrastructure Fund is an incredibly valuable resource for a lot of our smaller groups. And these 3 particular projects reflect how valuable that can be. The Society Car Park, Artist Society Car Park is one that's very valuable, and it also assists with disability access and age access to society. But the McGinnon's Car Park change shelters is one that's been called for many years, and the change shelters will in fact make a huge difference to the regular users of the beach. For their convenience and modesty, it would be worth us mentioning that these grants are pending landowner consent. Landowners, as I understand, dealt in both cases. council awaiting the department's consent for those two places to go ahead.
Thanks, Councillor Ziegler. Councillor Pascalialis?
Thank you, Mayor. I was going to say similar to Councillor Ziegler, where in particular the McGennan's car park change shelters, there has been, as far as the time that I've been on council, some very consistent and persistent requests for some type of change shelters in that area, separate to the McGennan's toilet block. And I think that this council has done a good job to really listen and enact some of those requests where we can. I guess we've seen that there's been a very strong need for those sorts of facilities because it isn't just during the summer season where these facilities are required. There are lots of people that they swim in the ocean, they bodyboard right throughout the year, and so I think that these facilities will be well used, despite there being some challenges with DELT in terms of the temporary versus permanent structures that we can build. I think it is a credit to the infrastructure department that they were able to sort of collate everything and really get this to work, even as a trial type period. So I think they deserve compliment there. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other councillors like to speak? Councillor Taylor?
Thank you, Mayor Shelley. Yes, I'd just like to endorse my fellow councillors' comments about the funding, and in particular the funds to assist the community gardens will divert the high stormwater flowing to create a new vegetated creek in the quarry. This community gardens is run by volunteers, and it's heading to become a major tourism attraction in Warrnambool. And I'd like to extend a very high compliment to all the volunteers who have worked many years on developing the quarry to what it has become now. And they have plans of having concerts, weddings, and you could hold quite a few things there. So it's a great compliment to all the volunteers at the community gardens. And I can't finish without adding in a comment about the McGennan's car park shelters will provide a much needed nearby change rooms rather than walk to the amenities block, which is 120 metres away. Thank you, Mayor Shelley.
Thanks, Councillor Taylor. Anyone else like to speak? I'd agree. The Community Small Infrastructure Fund is just a fabulous fund, and now that we're really understanding of it as councillors too, and we've put that message out to the community, there has been, I think, since our last allotment of funds, I think we've all probably been contacted by different groups, and that's why we asked. Not everyone's request will fit the criteria, but you need to apply to do that. These three things are all very valid, and again, the car park at the Artists Society is a bit dangerous. I've been there myself, so that'll help there with all abilities there. The community gardens, as Councillor Taylor's just said, they've gone from strength to strength out there, and we've all been there at some stage and had a look. The markets that they have on a Wednesday, but all the volunteer time, the great things they've got, and that can be used, that area can be used, hopefully with landowner consent, for many activities, events in the city, and I take the hat off to that group there, especially because they're really proactive and they go around things in the right way, and really happy. That's a great amount to be able to help them. And yes, the McGennan's car park change shelters, we were approached, especially last year, by quite a few groups, lots of bodyboarders, and not just young ones, older people, women in groups that go down there to the beach, every second day and bodyboard, and they just want to be able to get out of their wetsuits and things like that just in the privacy of a small shelter, not necessarily a shower or a toilet, but just to be able to change. So, and I do agree, thank to the infrastructure department, because we boarded up a couple of times, and David Lee and his team have come back to us with suggestions that have come to this fruition. So I'm sure those people that have asked for some sort of shelter down there will very much appreciate it. And thank you, David, your team coming up with some and we can get them going and up and running. So a great thing to be able to vote on. So, Councillor Arnott, no further speakers. Would you like to say anything?
Only just, I think everything's been said. It's all very positive, so
right.
just happy to endorse.
Thank you. So we'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Carried unanimously. Okay, 7.9, Public Tree Planting and Maintenance Policy Post-Consultation. Agenda page number 37, Directorate City Infrastructure. The purpose of this report is to adopt the public tree planting policy following a period of public consultation seeking submissions to the reviewed policy. The policy has been renamed the Public Tree Planting and Management Policy to capture trees in public open space as well. The policy was advertised for over a month seeking submissions on the policy, and no submissions were received. Okay, are there any questions, councillors? Do I have a motion, councillors? Councillor Ziegler, what is your motion?
Move that the recommendation as made by the officers be.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Blaine, thank you. Councillor Ziegler, would you like to speak?
Yes, I would. Jelly. It's good to see that there's a strengthening in this motion of the species selection criteria. In past years, I've always been very, very strongly towards advocating for the planting of native trees around the city, simply because they're the ones most likely to grow and be the healthiest species. However, old age made me a bit more accepting of exotic species, and I'm quite happy to include the fact in this particular motion that there's a good mix of native and exotic plants and trees around the town. And after all, any tree is better than none in this era of need to reduce CO2 emissions.
Thank you. Councillor Blaine, would you like to speak?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This was one of the first things, I think, one of the first things that Council actually adopted and put forward for the review. It is positive that with the strengthening of the new public tree planting and management policy, there were no submissions received. Trees are always such a controversial topic, and hopefully we've got the balance right this time with this policy. We've changed the name, we've strengthened the species criteria, and hopefully the reference guidelines really fit. And yeah, hopefully as we go on, especially as we move towards 40% canopy cover by 2040, the tree selection is smart, strategic, and fits the areas in which it has to, we plant them in order to not only cover our city, but as Councillor Ziegler said, protect our environment. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other councillors like to speak? Councillor Taylor?
Thank you, Mayor Jolly. Yes. And controversy, as seen by the plane trees removed from the Liebig Street under the Liebig Street Renewal Program in 2017. And I'd like to applaud the council workers to remove the plane trees from Liebig Street, in as much as one day they were there and next day they were gone. It all happened very quickly to avoid any controversy. Public education is a major part of the process around new tree plantings and providing suitable levels of information to adjacent residents when undertaking programs. Thank you, Mayor Jelly.
Thanks, Councillor Taylor. Anyone else like to speak? Thank you. No further speakers. Councillor Ziegler, would you like to close?
I'd just like to finish up by saying, Mayor Jelly, that the more trees that we can have in our municipality, the better, I think, for everybody's health. Micro environments are incredibly important to the health of everybody, and while Councillor Taylor's point is very well made about the negative effects of certain species, I think that the strengthening of our planting policy will see that fewer and fewer of those mistakes are made in future.
Thank you, Councillor Ziegler. So now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, 7.10, Volunteer Strategy, Agenda page number 40, Directed Community Development. This report recommends the Council endorse the volunteer strategy prepared by the Capacity, Access and Inclusion branch and outlined below. Any questions on this, councillors? Thank you. Do I have a motion? Councillor Arnott, what is your motion?
That council adopt the Warrnambool City Council volunteering strategic to 2024.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Paspagliaris. Councillor Arnott, would you like to speak?
Yes, well, volunteers have long been a part of the fabric of the community of Warrnambool. In fact, 24.6% of our residents volunteer. They provide an invaluable source to council. Dollar value and by doing that, it also improves our community in many ways, and helps council as well. So I think it's a very important document that we adopt.
People both generally in the community and also Warrnambool and the Southwest in general, the volunteering rates are some of the highest compared to the rest of regional Victoria. Volunteering facilitates the running of council programs which provide crucial services for those most in need, but it is certainly a two-way street. Those who volunteer are often appreciative of the social connection it gives them, the personal reward, the improvement in mental health and wellbeing, and the opportunity to give back. The volunteer strategy formalises council's aims and objectives into 3 strategic goals: to appeal to more people to consider volunteering, to strengthen the intent and enthusiasm of those who already volunteer, and in turn to manage volunteers better to retain the majority of those people who donate their time. Within this volunteer strategy, council has noted some improvements required, which include continued work on their overall volunteer management, strengthening communication to volunteers, developing a reward and recognition program, and regular feedback and consultation with volunteers. I'm sure volunteers don't really need that pat on the back, but I think it is still really important to highlight what volunteers are doing, to congratulate them regularly, and just to maintain that encouragement that they are doing a really important job within council and community. A better and more effective framework for volunteers can only be a good thing moving forward, and the highlighting of major themes that council need to work on within their volunteer program shows a thorough assessment process that informs this particular strategy. I support this volunteer strategy in its efforts to build support and consistency whilst managing risk and reward for the volunteer program.
Thank you. Any other councillors like to speak? Councillor Blaine.
Thank you, Mayor Jelly. It's exciting to see that we do have the new strategic plan here finally being accepted. And one of the key things with the strategy is finding and retaining our volunteers. After COVID, so many of our volunteers ended up having a break from their roles, and it wasn't just with Warrnambool City Council, with sporting clubs. So it's really important that this strategy is really on the front foot in order to make sure that our volunteers are valued and they feel like they have adequate skills and they're encouraged to actually come back, because after losing that routine, it's a struggle to get people back volunteering, and we've seen that in so many different groups in our community. So I really hope that with this strategy and setting the direction for Volunteer Correct, which will be the central hub for all things volunteering at council, I hope that we can get volunteers re-engaged in order to do the work that I understand that there's a dollar figure to it, but the work the volunteers do, many of them go above and beyond to deliver just for those around them, and I think it's a really special thing, especially for Warrnambool with such a high rate. So I really hope that through this strategy we can actually re-engage and not only go back to the numbers we were pre-COVID, but actually work to exceed what that was before then. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other councillors? Councillor Ziegler?
Yes, I think it needs to be acknowledged, Mayor Jelly, that this particular volunteer strategy is just an aspect of council's work that covers the volunteers, and that while the $1.3 million is an impressive figure, it goes nowhere near the amount of volunteer hours that are actually invested by the people of Warrnambool in all things social activity. It's our town and we make it what we will by volunteering, and this council strategy doesn't go far enough in acknowledging all the volunteer hours that happen with all the football clubs, with all the gym clubs, with all the surfboard riders clubs, all of those volunteer activities, the theatre company, all of these things are well beyond the kind of volunteer strategy programs that the city actually runs itself. And I think that we need to be aware that this volunteering in this town goes far beyond that particular strategy. We need to acknowledge the work of all the volunteers in the town.
Thanks, Councillor Ziegler. Any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Mayor Jelly. Yes, I'd like to endorse all my fellow councillors' comments about the volunteers, and in particular Councillor Paspalaris's comment that the volunteers would or do deserve a pat on the back, and the volunteering is a essential part of the Warrnambool City Council, where more than a quarter of the residents in Warrnambool volunteer and run programs that provide connection, health and well-being to its people, and invest in the culture that Warrnambool's reputation is a great place to live. And being a former Rotary member, I'd just like to add on the Rotary clubs that Councillor Ziegler left out, and many Rotarians volunteer for the betterment of Warrnambool in this great city of ours. Thank you, Mayor Jelly.
Thanks, Councillor Taylor. Anyone else wanting to speak? It's a great strategy, and as alluded to, COVID has made us look at this differently. We now to really, I know we always looked after our volunteers, but because of all those health-specific issues and things like that, it's made this strategy look at things differently. So if we go through something like that again, it's looked at in a better a light. Volunteers are the backbone of our community, no matter where you live. You know, whether it's out there in that atrium with that kindergarten show, the art show out there, volunteers go to that kindergarten, or the schools or whatever, and we've all volunteered, I'm sure. It says 25% nearly, but we've all done some sort of volunteering, whether it's for your football club or your school or the theatre group or something like that. We've all done something, so I agree, it's all volunteers, but I'm so glad that we've can put this strategy through, because it's very important for everyone, and it is the benefit to the community, but the benefit of the volunteers for them to go home and feel that they've helped someone, have made a difference in someone's life, and that's great for them. So it's twofold. There being no further speakers, Councillor Arnott, would you like to close?
I think everything's been said. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Passed unanimously. Okay, 7.11, Advisory Committee Reference Group Reports, agenda page number 45, Directorate City Infrastructure. This report contains the record of one reference group meeting. Any questions before we go with this one? Thank you, councillors. Do I have a motion? Councillor Ziegler, what is your motion?
That the record of the Warrnambool Airport Reference Group meeting held on the 23rd of May 2022 be received.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Arnott, thank you. Councillor Ziegler, would you like to speak?
No, thank you, Mayor Jelly.
Thank you. Councillor Arnott, would you like to speak?
No, thank you.
Anyone like to speak to this? Thank you. So we'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, 7.12, informal meetings of council reports, agenda page number 46, Directorate Executive Services. The purpose of this report is to provide council with copies of informal meetings of council previously known as Assembly of Councillor Records, as previously required under Section 88(2) of the Local Government Act 1989. Any questions with this from any councillor? Thank you. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Arnott, what is your motion?
That the record of the informal meetings of council held on 14 and 27 June 2022 be received.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Ziegler, thank you. Councillor Arnott, would you like to speak to that?